wear Black Power Media gear, you can accomplish anything. You can play any and every position. Coaching, to kicking, to receiving, to running and juking. And oh my goodness, I see that again in slow motion. Get off me. And you're going to have a lot of haters coming at you, but what you got to do is you got to shake them off, and get to your goal and accomplish it. And when that's done, it's a beautiful thing. I'm talking about going hard, extra, for that extra point. And when it's done beautifully, you talking about touchdown. Oh, and the crowd goes wild and they're celebrating with you and everything. Man, let's see that again. Nice.
Black Power Media, baby. That's how we do it.
Now go to blackpowermedia.org and get you some of that gear. Empower yourself today. Yeah.
Yeah.
1 2 1 2. What's happening, world? You are live with GIU, Guerrilla Intellectual University. Welcome. It's a beautiful May Day. Shout out to all of the freedom fighters out there on this wonderful May Day, out there putting in that work. You know, it's always a beautiful thing. We are happy to be with you for another month going into we'll be hitting summertime soon. You know,
getting there.
Yeah. We about to be in there like swimwear, as they say. Whole lot going on the platform. We have some new shows. Make sure you check those new shows out. We have a few different programs happening today. I know at 11 o'clock you have something going on, Jared. First of all, before we even go there, how you feeling, brother?
Man, I'm good, man. I'm as good as could be expected, and always good to and somehow made it after that late night. You and the crew had us up, you know. And oddly enough, my children, my youngest overslept. I was like, you went to bed before me.
Wow.
Anyway. Yeah.
Wow.
So we were struggling this morning, but well worth it, man. So I'm good, man. How are you doing, man?
Man, I'm alive on arrival. Definitely I appreciate the convo last night with Dylan Rodriguez, Joy James, our good brother Sam Randolph, who was good to see him off Death Row. I know that you had him on a couple weeks ago on EYL. And that brother's story is a story that needs to be told. So, you know, we're grateful for that opportunity. And that's one of the beauties of Black Power Media, the fact that we can go to the source, go to the horse's mouth. And speaking of that series that you're doing right now on Fanon, with folks like Daruba coming through, laying out, putting things in context, that's a powerful piece. So big up to you and the work that you're doing on that side.
No, everything. Look, man. I've said since we put this together, I think this is what I've been. This is like a dream for me, the dream before the reality of the revolution. You know,
Indeed.
So like we doing it's great to be able to have these conversations and to have, you know, Sam ended up on EYL because of the connections you all were making. So it was and starting off and shout out to Michelle. Shout out to all the people doing the work around these. I mean, all, you know, so like, that's the whole point. It was like, when can you get here? And if we're on air, come on here. If you're on air, then go on. It's like whatever needs to happen happens. And then it's great when impromptu things like last night can happen. And then even this morning, as a matter of fact, Daruba was asked that we just show this real quick, just in terms of the conversation we've been having, and we'll continue to do to bring this up. But he's just reminding us that this was the New York Post from February 22nd, 1971, suggesting that Daruba and Cetewayo had been killed on the orders of Huey Newton. And as Daruba has been raising for us to consider, how would the press have come to this conclusion were it not for the intervention of the COINTELPRO and other related efforts to try to take advantage of differences within the party, and then the way that these things are being carried on mainstream press, you know, in a Hulu series, that they're being referenced without really being detailed, without being heard from the all the primary sources. You know, that's so And you've put us in touch. Shout out to TJ Whitaker and others who put us in touch with Bob Boyle. So I've heard from him over the last couple hours, and we'll be looking to have him on. In fact, I meant to tell you, when we were talking off air a minute ago, I meant to tell you, which to say it now, that we'll have to collaborate schedules, because if he's going to come on, I think you should be there as well. But there's more documents. In other words, there's more documents and context. And then I thought that Bob could also come on to talk about being what it's like to, when Dhoruba said the other day that where are the lawyers doing that work today? Right. We can sort of talk about that sort of legacy. I know that, Bob wasn't directly involved with the 21 per se, but working with Dhoruba, political prisoners, working with that history, working with those kind of lawyers, and then he's got more documents, in other words, so we can continue to sort of add context and, anyway, so it's just great to be able to do that here. It's an honor to be able to do that here. And I look forward to doing much more, and as I'm sure.
Now that article that you showed, just for folks reference, on the left was Dhoruba, the picture that said Moore, that was his quote unquote government name, and to the right of Huey was Setuel. So, just for context, for folks to know who's who in the picture, so you have Dhoruba, Huey Newton, and Setuel. So I think that at some point, excuse me, some of the other folks from that era should also come on.
No question.
Get Sekou and
no question,
and some of the other folks, man, who've already been on the platform, so, but I think, and I want folks to know what a jewel we have here. And I'm not just saying it because I'm one of the founders, quote unquote. I'm saying this because for us coming up, we actually had to go to a lot of live lectures. This is painstaking political education. This is study. This is research. It's just not, because I know we get criticism sometimes, but
it's okay.
Yeah, but to sit in these seats, this ain't the, just a couple folks that felt like shooting the shit. What we bring you on this platform is, is an incredible piece. And you're not going to agree with everything on here. I'm going to tell you that right now. Matter of fact, let the record reflect, I don't agree with everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, we don't.
So, don't get it twisted.
But that's the point.
Yeah. So some of the shit I be hearing, even Jed say, I'm like, I don't know what the hell he talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I went back and listened to myself, which I don't like to do. And was like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah, I ask myself all the time.
Shut that bald motherfucker up real quick. Like, what is he talking about? Oh, that's you. Oh, anyway. So like, but no question. And it is sometimes, I'm glad you made that point, and to remind us the government names, et cetera, because it is, in fact, when I had put a picture of Dhoruba from back in the day on one of the cover photos from these recent interviews, there was someone in the chat while he's on talking to me.
Right.
In the chat about who's that on the picture, and it's like, this is like, so sometimes like even with Dhoruba, don't think that this old man just showed up here and started talking shit out of nowhere. And then to a much lesser extent, I and you, we didn't just like the video, again, it might be the first video you're seeing of us.
Right.
But it's not, you didn't birth us, you didn't bring us into existence by your viewership. So it's just, there is a history here. But anyway,
and don't really care, like, with all due respect, man, because sometimes I get folks who want to inbox and school me about different individuals and people, and you don't know where we come from. You know what I'm saying? That there's a joint. Those who tell, those who know don't tell, and those who tell don't know. So, for me, the most beautiful thing, or one of the most beautiful things about this, is my heroes are my comrades. You understand what I'm saying? So, and that's just it. And not just the quote unquote, because I'm not into nostalgia. I'm not just caught up in any particular party. We have OGs from all over, but I have comrades younger than me that I look to for counsel as well, women, men, whatever, because I think that, we're talking about protracted struggle. You know what I'm saying? This is not a, an overnight thing. You know what I'm saying? So when you hear me talking about the siafu, when you talk about the ant, the significance behind that is just that there's the strength in numbers, but coming from a small force. You know what I'm saying? And a life form that looks to be insignificant, that you would think is insignificant, and that's what, to me, that's what the African is. You know what I'm saying? The African is something, is a people that are overlooked. But I want to say too, man, before we hop into the thing, uh, big up to Black Power Media. You know, to all the folks who believed in us, all the folks who came on board. We have a few new shows. I know that Coco has her new show, Confronting
Confronting
Contradiction.
country.
Is that right?
Yeah, I had asked. I was even in the chat last night inviting her to come through this morning. I was like, I need your help because
Right.
this Fanon joint, boy, is right up Coco's lane, and so she said I think she's busy today, but I hope that I hope that they pick this up on her show with whatever becomes her crew on that program, because yeah. Anyway, I need some more help.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
and I like, you know, and she's been on this whole question of what's a nation, what's a state, what
course,
is colonial land, retaking the land and freeing the land mean, and all that. So I think it's these conversations is just, as we were just saying, will continue to reverberate throughout the platform.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of being a part of an organization. And shout out to the Republic of New Africa. I know that tonight Mama Tamu will be on with Daughters of the Whirlwind. I believe at 7 p.m. We've had her on Mama Tamu on Riot Starter TV maybe about a year ago. And she's an OG, another sister who is here in Atlanta, that, you know, I pretty much know their whole family. And I got a lot of you know, jewels from the family. You know, they had a formation out here, the African Community Centers. I was actually on the board at one point, you know, so I definitely salute them for their work. And to all of you, you know, I was thinking last night, Jared, while we had our show going on, I was like, man, I remember us even conceiving the thought of a Black Power Media. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy because I love to see things come into fruition. So I still have like the initial text message, like me texting you, like, "Yo, what's up, man? What about us teaming up?" Because I've
Oh
always
wow,
been
that's dope.
a fan of I
That
Mix
shit.
What I Like. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I was like, "Yo," in my mind, I was like, "Yo, I'm gonna step to Jared because I know he's doing I Mix What I Like." And
Yeah.
I Mix What I Like and Renegade Culture get together. We could bum rush the set.
It's over.
So I didn't know what you was gonna say. Then you called me back. He's like, "Hell yeah, let's do this.
Man,
Like,
the way I still picture it is, man, I was just standing around, you know, kicking rocks in the sandbox one day, and all of a sudden, here come Kalaji talk about, yo, we should do this, and all of a sudden, you know, life had new meaning, and I was like, hell yeah,
man. But it's so yeah. So like with that, it's like I never think about it, but like it was literally in the middle of that joint last night. I'm like, okay, boom. This is the beauty of collective works. You know what I'm saying? And we have all types of different people who've come on board, different programs, platforms, so on and so forth. You know, unfortunately, Renegade Coach is no longer here. However, you know, it's morphed. So we look at it as a transformation.
And I did stop through the Ear
Doctor.
Doctor's Sundays on the way last night. So it was like which he's nice, man. Like we fuck around with the you know, whatever, but when he's doing his thing, and he killed it last night. So it was to your point, like it's not Renegade Culture proper.
Right.
But if I go watch a Kamal speech somewhere and then check a Sundays, and then I can check you out,
it's all the same thing.
You know, I get the you know, piece it all together.
You know, that it's like a musical group. You know what I'm saying? You know,
Yeah.
people be like, man, how come Wu-Tang won't get back together? How come the old whatever? You know what I'm saying?
Remember, George Clinton did it with Parliament.
That's how it
And he
goes,
did Wu-Tang with the funk thing before Wu-Tang. He had
without a
like
doubt.
the whole and everybody's it's that's I love it. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
real
But
quick
anyway,
before we
reminiscent.
move on,
Yes.
and for now, I'm going to err on the side of caution and not say any names until I can clarify that they would want this to happen. But I just want to shout out the AAPRP and this incredible presentation yesterday that I got to watch also, by the way, on the relationship of religion to struggle. And particularly the way historically that Africans have, in my interpretation, just quietly sitting in the audience, was that African people have historically done things with religion that maybe religion didn't even intend to be done in the pursuit of liberation. And it was quite inspiring, even for this heathen ass atheist. I was like, you got to be reminded of some things, man. And I'm like, it was very dope. And yeah, so I, shout out to and I'm trying to, I want to let me go back and clarify before I start praising all the names in particular, but just because I'm just never, I just didn't think about that. I just want to be clear, but big shout out to the sisters that ran that joint, man. They killed it yesterday, man. And my only problem is we need to get versions of that over here.
Yeah.
Over,
we coming. we coming, and that's kind of
I want them to bring it. I want them to do that.
Listen, man.
But anyway, man, that was dope, man.
I'm a dare step out there on a limb and say, listen, if you ain't at Black Partner, I ain't gonna do the Joe Biden.
Yeah, do it.
I'm gonna say this, man. We are open to new shows, ideas. You know what I'm saying? We have to be able to work together collectively. Maybe you all know another platform like ours. I don't. You know what I mean? Put me on if there is some folks out there who are doing exactly what we're doing as a collective. We're always looking to join forces and unite with folks around the planet, and that's just it. You know what I mean? So there is no competition. In the motor words of the R. We talking about making this thing happen, man. So come on down.
Hey, yeah, no question. My written voice. I'm talking to you. I'm talking. No, that was it. It really is something, and it actually, real quick, it reminded me of what we were just talking about. Like for a long time, I think because the YouTube thing, and for me at least, there is a sort of there is a performance to it that folks who don't know, and how would they know? But yesterday reminded me of the years that before I would have even thought of sitting in front of a microphone or going on a panel, that I just sat in audiences, man, and sat and listened to lecture tapes. And like you said, going to driving hours to sit in some hot ass room to hear somebody say something that people can now click and watch, and you leaned up in the corner like this trying to get, can I just hear a little bit? And then, and it's like for years. So it was, anyway, so yesterday, just in general, whether it was your show, whether it was this presentation I'm talking about, whether it was even Ear Doctor's thing, it was like, that's what
it's variety.
And I just think, I don't know to what extent that happens these days. I feel like there's a very quick, I saw something and now I'm gonna do it.
Like, and that's exactly, I think that you are correct on that. And Rising Power to Automatics, I know his services are today in New York.
Oh yeah, right on.
And for him, even the Slave Theater in New York. The first time I ever saw Dick Gregory live and Malcolm's Daughters was at a piece that he hosted in Harlem. You know what I mean? Never knowing, never imagining that someday I'd be sharing the same platform with him, Dick Gregory, and
Cynthia McKinney, that's crazy.
Tawana Brawley, and you know what I'm saying? And when you hear us saying certain names, it's not for clout. You know what I'm saying? Been in this thing, it's documented. That's not what it's about. It's about paying homage to folks, and that has been one of the efforts that we've attempted here on this platform as well. There's some folks that we brought on that have more popular names, and there are folks who most of you never heard of. However, you can get that information and that education, right here at BPM. So definitely salute to you. I hate to give these other two dudes credit, the ear doctor. I feel like the what's that what's my man name from Chicago, the rapper Lupe.
Oh, right.
Lupe was like there's only one out there. Lupe
Oh,
was
yeah.
talking about the tribe. He said, "Assalamu alaikum to the what's that, the brother, I forgot what he called it, but anyway,
Oh,
he said
I'm
the
not.
other
Yeah.
two that I don't mess with, you know
Oh,
what I mean?
yeah.
So, yeah, so I'm Lupe up in this piece right now.
Nah,
Still
yeah.
got
It's
beef, but we but it's a beautiful thing. That's what
yeah.
I appreciate everyone's contribution to the building of this platform, and
No
we
doubt.
wouldn't have been the same if it wasn't, with all the people that we've brought on.
Yeah,
But
no
anyway,
question.
yes,
So shout out to I got my little Haymarket Affair tribute picture over here. So shout out to May Day, Labor Day, and of course to the political prisoners. And we can dedicate this discussion of national liberation and culture. Boy, oh boy.
indeed,
Boy,
it's gonna
oh
be heavy.
boy.
We got a lot going on this one.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
You think they're ready?
Am I ready? That's the
Okay.
question. I saw Coco in the chat. So I hope, we need some help. I'm very interested to see what people, and having gone back and read this again after so many years, and it's man, Fanon was dope, man, and it's a lot going on here. But anyway, I'll let you.
Oh, good. We are on chapter 4, correct?
Correct.
Okay, chapter 4. The title is boom. What's the title of chapter
So
4?
on my version, I don't know if it's always the same anymore. It's titled On National Culture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm old school, so I'm the guy that reads from the book. But
Mhm.
excuse me, I'm gonna go with a summary real quick. Okay.
Mhm.
So basically, in chapter 4 of his book, Wretched, Franz Fanon explores the psychological impact of colonialism on both the colonized and the colonizers. Fanon argues that colonialism creates profound trauma for both groups, causing mental disorders and profound changes in psychological outlooks. He refers to these psychological changes as existential alienation and argues that they result from the traumatic nature of colonialism. One of the central arguments in this chapter is that colonialism cannot be seen as simply an economic or political system. Instead, Fanon argues that it represents a complete and all-encompassing social and psychological phenomenon. This is because colonialism represents a pervasive and oppressive form of social control that extends into every aspect of the colonized world. As a result, it breeds feelings of powerlessness, hopelessness, and despair among those who are subjected to it. Fanon argues that many of the mental disorders that arise among the colonized are the result of this sense of powerlessness and hopelessness. This can manifest in a variety of ways, including depression, anxiety, and a lack of identity or self-worth. As colonized people begin to recognize the enormity of their oppression, they can experience a profound sense of alienation from themselves and their surroundings. This can lead to a range of physical and mental health problems, including PTSD, addiction, and suicide ideation. At the same time, Fanon argues that the colonial system also creates mental disorders in the colonizers. He suggests that the system of social control that emerges under colonialism creates a double reality for the colonizers, such that they become deeply invested in the idea of their own racial superiority. This leads to a type of psychological division within the colonizer, as their beliefs about themselves and their place in society are clearly at odds with the reality of the system they're enforcing. This can lead to a profound sense of existential confusion and unease. I'm gonna pause right there. Um, this part, uh, this particular chapter is important because, again, we're talking about national culture. And we often hear that word culture, but for some reason, many forces want to forget about the cultural side of things, about culture. And I don't see how it's possible. It's like certain things you can't really separate. You know, if you take the sugar out the cake, is it still cake? You know what I'm saying? We have to say what is the what's the root of things. But anyway, I want to
But
dive into that.
but
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, but that's the so that's where I'm not sure. So I feel like in this he takes shots at everybody.
Right.
And in one of the in one of the points that he's making though is that people have lost sight of the fact that culture has to be connected to the politics of the nation. So he's saying that's why he's saying like it's not enough to write poems. It's not enough to
Right.
write a song. You got to fight. And if
Right.
you're not uh if your focus on culture is not connected to that national liberation, then you're performing simply a blackened version of what white folks have been wanting, you know. So he goes, that's where it's like this and I struggle with going back and forth with in trying to keep up with it from one page to the next. And this is why like we really got it, like these books need to really be studied properly. And is when is he talking about how is he defining nation? How would that apply, or would it apply to today? And then later we'll come back to what is he saying when how is he even defining culture? And then what does he mean in terms of because he names people. He's saying Sangor is wrong, negritude is wrong. He's saying, you're basically, as I read it, don't confuse Cheikh Diop for Leopold Senghor. Don't, and what I hear today is like a lot of cultural nationalists will read Diop for the cultural piece, but lose sight of his Marxist past, his federated history, his federated states book, and his point being that the cultural discussion has to be, as Fanon was saying, connected to land and liberating that territory.
Right.
So I just think, yeah. And then when we got to come to at some point when what he says about the differences between, because he if not read carefully, the reverse hashtags can get points from what he says here, because he challenges us on this African culture piece and where do Black Americans fit in it. I mean, it's woo. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
I mean, and again, you're looking at we have to ask ourselves not only what he was studying, but where was he at?
Right.
Because I think that one of the things that we have to look at is where you at mentally, but also physically.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Where do you exist? Where are you? What is your reality? So what is your historical reality, but what is your material reality at that particular moment? And I think that we often we study different texts and individuals, and our efforts and attempts are to apply it to where we are. And I think that that's the importance of culture as well, because we won't get caught up in whether or not, because a brother says they're Muslim, if they think they're an Arab or not. Arab culture and African culture is not the same thing. You can take whatever tools and utilize it for your interests, right? When you are at war, you're not going to look at your weapon and say, oh, this gun was made in Russia, I'm not going to use this. You understand what I'm saying? You're going to utilize that tool to advance your particular struggle.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? So, as they say, a wise man utilize all tools. But when it comes to culture, it often amazes me when I see folks that want to deny or denounce their own culture. You understand what I'm saying? To me, I think that's one of the weapons of the colonizer to convince you that you share the same culture or you are part of the same nation, when in fact you are a bastardized version, or they're the bastardized version, but you are trying to fit into a square peg in your circle. You understand what I'm saying? It's just all types of different, ways to look at it. In reading this, I thought about Harry Belafonte
Mm.
using his art as a weapon, right? Now, I've heard different things or whatever because, of course, there's always going to be criticisms that apply to any and all of us. You know what I'm saying? There's going to be contradictions because we are a colonized people, and so much so that we've totally embraced and begun to live someone else's culture. So I don't think that we even understand the amount of damage that we have and the amount of indoctrination and colonization that we suffer from. The fact that we're here speaking English on YouTube is a testament to where we are. So so again, it's this chapter to me is on point, especially with the passing of Harry Belafonte, because we look at just some of his works over those 9+ decades, right? Some would say evolution, some would say, oh, he could have did this, he could have did that, but I mean, he did more than most, especially coming from that artist perspective. But like you said, Fanon was talking about, eventually got to fight as well. It's gonna take more
So
than just the songs.
yeah, I mean, yeah, and then he also, that is, Fanon raises these interesting questions about what version. First of all, he says all culture must be national is the
Right.
line. So that's why he starts saying that what it applies to, as he calls out, Richard Wright and Langston Hughes doesn't necessarily apply to Senghor or whoever else writing in various African nationalities on the continent and here and there. But he's also does something that I was struggling to keep up with, which is which version of the indigenous cultural past do we look back to? Because Fanon seems to be saying that those who want to go back, and like as he calls the bards of negritude, that was the other thing. Like people had like cats was taking shots, man. It's not like YouTube didn't invent hate, it was just maybe written better. But
Right.
but he was, when he's saying the bards of negritude, he's saying like, when you go back and grab some distant cultural memory and try to bring it to the present, you're doing it consciously or not, as I am paraphrasing or maybe misinterpreting. You're doing it to avoid the struggle today, and you're doing it out of step with the evolving national culture of the day. So it's not enough to just say, he talks about the colonized intellectual. It's not enough to just say, hey man, let me go back and study my African past, which Fanon says is a logical response to the initial imposition of colonialism, which is telling you that you have no past, that we have no history. So the initial response is, of course we have a history. So this is, and I always remember when Ali Mazrui, may he rest in power, even when I disagree, I love that man. When he would lecture from his 40-year-old yellow manila pad, handwritten notes. But his point was, he summarized the difference between Cheikh Anta Diop and Leopold Senghor was that Diop said we had a history as strong and as powerful as the Europeans, based on the European standard of civilization. Senghor is saying we didn't have what Europeans had, but we didn't need it. And that's how he summarized the difference between the two. And I think what Fanon is saying in league with Diop, maybe stretching it here, is that it's not enough to just look into the past and say we're not like the European who is doing this to us. That's cool. It may even be correct, but it's out of step with where we are today. Where we are today is we need to catch up culturally to the need for a national liberation struggle. And that's where a Diop's approach, a slightly more materialist approach to the cultural approach, if I may say it that way, is more appropriate today because of where we are.
Right.
I think that's how I think I'm reading what Fanon was saying then. To your point, it's obviously time and place and whatever, but because he even asks, he even says he predicts that in the decades to come, the version of jazz that Black Americans play for that whites will like is the version that is some old retrograde shit that reminds white folks of when Black people were just meek and humble. But when they start doing the bebop and start doing the free jazz, whatever else is starting to emerge, whites start to, oh,
Right.
I don't know if that particular analogy holds, but I think the point is correct. Anyway, let me stop. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, and I think that when you're talking about Job as well, I think that a lot of people get caught up. You absolutely, Sankofa, right? We got to go back. You know what I'm saying? We got to look back to see, where we're going, right? Check out progress, the whole nine, right? The measure progress. I think that a lot of folks get caught up in the either or. Either you have to, concentrate on your history and glorify your past and all of that type stuff, and to a great extent ignore where we are at present, and just say, because I hear a lot of folks talking about, we built pyramids and we didn't build shit. Get your pronouns right. Your lazy ass don't even want to mow the lawn. You talking about we built pyramids. You know what I'm saying? You want to hire somebody else. So let's stop playing games here. We did that's so we don't just caught up. And I think that even when we look at the 60s era, our generation and the generations that come after us, I think that we look at the 60s as like when revolution begun. Like it began in the 60s and it ended in the 70s, and that's it. History is, it's a continuum. We are here. This is history now. There are folks that are around right now, 20, 30 years from now, Africans to be speaking of. But we don't get caught up in the glorification of the past. We identify it and we say, okay, boom, this is our history, this is our culture. We embrace it, but we have to take it and make it work in the best interest of the day. But we also study to avoid pitfalls. You know what I'm saying? We don't just get caught up in what we used to do. Like I tell folks all the time, I don't respect movement dropouts. I run into these cats as, oh, yeah, back in the day, I used to boom, boom, boom. We used to. Where you at now? Don't tell me you too old when I know folks that are in their 90s right now that still actively involved. Culture is our way of life. Culture is it's our DNA. And without culture, it's void. I hear folks talking about, and I'm not even talking about atheists. I hear folks talking about they don't believe in spirituality. Right? That's cool. But for me, that's a part of revolution. You know what I'm saying? The physical, the mental, the spiritual. For me, revolution itself is spiritual. You know what I mean? And I don't see how you could be victorious without certain ingredients. That's just me. Now, there are folks that would argue, but usually these are folks who aren't necessarily actively involved or engaged in the action part.
No, so let me. So this is, if I can, this would be how I would respond to my atheist comrades, in the same way I would say it, in the way I interpreted Fanon to be saying it here. When he's talking about it, and shout out to the Black Arts movement and that whole approach, but we need combat literature and revolutionary literature. So, or in other words, if you're going to be an atheist, that has to lead you back to and be connected in the same way that Fanon is talking about here, to the culture of to the role of culture in relationship to its development parallel to people's struggles. So in other words, your atheism has to evolve culturally, or as any cultural component to a people's struggle. So as he says here, sooner or later, however, the colonized intellectual realizes that the existence of a nation is not proved by culture, but in the people's struggle against the forces of occupation. So that's my point about atheism, that your atheism is not is proved by your struggle against forces of occupation. So however you want to get there, you got to get there. But this is sort of also the part I wanted to add to that, because he's saying similarly here, culture never has the translucency of custom. Culture eminently eludes any form of simplification. In its essence, it is the very opposite of custom, which is always a deterioration of culture. Anyway, seeking to stick to tradition or reviving neglected traditions is not only going against history, but against one's people. When a people support an armed or even political struggle against a merciless colonialism, tradition changes meaning. This is why the intellectual often risks being out of step. The peoples who have waged the struggle are increasingly impermeable to demagoguery. So anyway, as I struggle with this, I think what as I take from that, again, whether it's, I'm trying to insert the atheism piece here, but whether it's atheism or anyone's approach to culture, it has to be developed in league with the development of the national struggle. And I'm glad he threw in there armed or political struggles. So some of us who, can safely say we just talk about the political part, but it's the same process, that political struggle requires a culture that is driving that, and is combat literature and combat art. Anyway,
when is political not violent?
War by another means, I think they used to say. Yeah. I hear you.
So I mean, you don't have to be violent. You could do what you want to do. You know what I'm saying? That's why I don't argue certain things. Like I tell folks, man, it's like, we look at I think we look at everything is about perception and understanding, right? So I can say something and you can say, oh, this is that, or that's this. You have to understand, or we have to understand what is our definition of what it is we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we'll get caught up in absolutes, and there are no absolutes. So when we talk about studying culture, like Fanon was talking about in regards to customs, traditions, so on and so forth, customs and traditions might not have been necessarily right. Right now, we have customs and traditions in modern times, in this era. 30, 40 years from now, folks would be like, look how savage they were.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So we're not getting caught up in, when we were in Africa. That's not what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? We're not talking about we were kings and queens, because I hate that shit too. I hear folks all the time like, we was in Africa, we was kings and queens. Well, who the fuck was the servants? You know what I'm saying? Everybody was a king and a queen.
Or to your point, update that custom and be the king of your lawn, motherfucker.
Yeah, start with that.
Be the king, be the king of the weeds and
the king of yourself. You don't even have dominion over yourself.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And that right there, and that is a byproduct of capitalism. It's like everything we do and the way we look, the way we talk, the way we walk is a result of being colonized. You know what I'm saying? So we get caught up And even our quest for liberation is under the rules and guidelines of the colonizer. And that is why, when folks like Daruba and the BLA and RAM and all these other different formations, when they decided to respond and, as Chairman Fred would say, disagree violently, then they're looked at as terrorists. But of course, when the Minutemen do it, then it's okay, because they are patriots and they're looking out they're defending their nation. You know what I'm saying? And we have to take this shit personal and defend our nation and defend our culture. But again, we don't get caught up in just in the terms or even in the personalities, because again, we look at many of us, when we think of 60s era, the first thing that pops up in our mind when we talk about resistance is the Black Panther Party.
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't the only forces that were responding. These are the forces that the U.S. government highlighted. And since they highlighted those particular formations, then those are the ones that, when you talk to folks, when you listen to folks like the Reuben all them, they'll tell you, look, most of the leadership were already organizers in their own rights in their own areas. So they already had organization. So this was a consolidation. It was an umbrella, it was a network. And then everybody decided to get under the same banner. But we're not going to act like it was just, everything was just organic.
That's why I was trying to remind folks that these discussions with Daruba are not my first. They're not our first. That
Right.
I was reminding them, just go back. If folks just go watch those couple of soldier stories, that we did on the platform with Blood and Sekou, and I mean the whole.
I'm gonna do a chat. Let me bust in the chat real quick.
Oh, sure.
Diverse tribe, because you don't know what I'm talking about, don't mean I don't know what I'm talking about. But thank you for your comment. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I didn't see it, but okay. But yeah, I mean, but that's sort of my point, that just those two conversations alone already upset so much of what some overwhelming percentage of the population thinks they know about the Panther Party. Yeah, anyway, and related histories. So that's right on. And then I did want to, what I love so much about what Fanon is doing, and why I've always thought, though I'm not able to make the argument any better, is that the focus on colonialism satisfies and collapses, and I think answers and even defeats so many other contradictions, because it gets everybody's focus back on to what is the primary, or what should be the primary goal of, as he describes it, national liberation. So in other words, if you're a materialist, then focus on national liberation. What does it mean to retrieve your humanity, as we talked about in previous chapters? Your support for armed struggle, for political revolution. If you're an intellectual, or
right,
for, that's what you need to be focused on. If you are involved, if your interest is cultural, spiritual, religious, there, as he gets into in this chapter, there's differences throughout the African continent between Africans and Arabs, and Africans and other Africans. But the point is, return your focus to national liberation, right, and getting rid of colonial occupation. And if that, it's almost for everybody. It's like you can't get lost in the utopianism of Afrocentric fantasies of African past any more than you can get lost in the Marxist utopianism, or, well, he would call it dystopianism, of communist fantasies of some Eurocentric whatever. None of that is possible if the focus is, as Fanon keeps saying, national liberation and anti-colonial, decolonial movement and struggle. It just brings everybody from all of these strands can find a place and get back in it. And same thing with the poets. And I just want to share this, and then I'll stop again. But whether you're a poet or an artist, or I would add journalist, academic, much could be said about poetry. After the assimilation period of rhyming verse, the beat of the poetic drum bursts onto the scene. Poetry of revolt but which is also analytical and descriptive. The poet must, however, understand that nothing can replace the rational and irreversible commitment on the side of the people in arms. So it's not a perfect analogy,
Repeat
but
that one more time. Repeat that one more
sure,
time.
sure. I'll back up here a little bit here. He says the educated circles go ecstatic over such careful renditions of truth, but we have every right to ask ourselves whether the truth is real, whether in fact it is not outmoded, irrelevant, or called into question by the heroic saga of the people hacking their way into history. So in other words, as I interpret it, it's the poetry can't just take us all the way back to some distant past. It's got to be, talking about what's happening and supportive of what's happening now in terms of, as he's pointing out, the armed struggle. Much the same could be said about poetry. After the assimilation period of rhyming verse, the beat of the poetic drum bursts onto the scene. Poetry of revolt, but which is also analytical and descriptive. The poet must, however, understand that nothing can replace the rational and irreversible commitment on the side of the people in arms.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, man. This is beautiful. That's what I'm saying. And yeah, this is beautiful. And diverse tribe. I'm sorry, I misread what you said. But anyway, getting back to this right here, man. It reminds me of KRS once said, "Nothing new." You know what I'm saying? And it's the same two-step, and there's no way that. And I love poetry, and there's some heavy duty, big up to Sonny Patterson, Mary Suleiman, and so many others out there who, and those who came before the Oscar Brown Juniors, you know what I'm saying, the Gil Scotts, the Last Poets, the Watts Prophets, folks like that. These are like, quote unquote. I think that poets sort of like Black Power or Black Lives Matter. I think that folks come along and they water it down. So when you say a poet, a lot of times folks get confused with, someone just talking about, and nothing wrong with talking about flowers and trees, but that's part of revolution. We're defending the flowers, the trees, so on and so forth. But the quote unquote cultural workers that I respect, not only they're like the farmers, they don't only use their pen as a writing tool, but they use their pen as a weapon. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes literally, right? So I dig what he's saying, because I think that we get caught up in the nice sounding words, and folks think that there you can be a neutral in war, and there are no neutrals in war, right? So even if you decide to quote unquote be nonviolent or be a pacifist and say that I'm not in this or whatever the case is, or I'm just gonna pray it away, you've chosen a side. Either you resist or you don't. There's no gray area.
Check it out. So I'm reading this, right, and I'm getting in my, and I'm like, yeah, get them, Fanon, get them poets and them artists. I can't write a poem. I don't rhyme. I don't play drums no more. Get them. But then you keep reading, and he like, yeah, I'm a hater. And then I'm like, get him, Fanon, get him. But you keep reading, and then he's like, hold up, Jared. Who you think you is? I got something for you too. Yeah. So as he says,
you like my father. Like I'd be like, yeah, you right. Oh yeah. And what happened to you doing such and such?
Exactly.
I thought we was talking about him.
I thought we right. How we get over here? Then Fanon hit us with that. Stuff. Yeah, you bring it up. Oh, yeah, I thought we was talking about them. Nah, Fanon said when the colonized intellectual writing for his people uses the past, he must do so with the intention of opening up the future, of spurring them into action and fostering hope. But in order to secure hope, in order to give it substance, he must take part in the action and commit himself body and soul to the national struggle. So I'm like, damn it. God damn it. Yeah, you say.
No, rewind that one more time.
Why can't we?
Sometimes I ask you to reread something because I needed to. I need to process. You know what I mean?
What was that
Live
old?
on air.
What was that old Chick-fil-A commercial where they got the cow holding up the sign saying "Eat more chicken"? And I'm like, I'm like the cow saying "Eat more chicken." For now, why are you putting over?
Yeah, it's not even old. I'm in Atlanta, so it's billboards everywhere with chicken.
I'm like, why are you pointing at me?
Yeah,
I'm just trying to over here earn a little check and some insurance, some health care. You know what I'm saying? Little tenure. Nah.
GIU.
Nah. He said when the colonized intellectual writing for his people uses the past, he must do so with the intention of opening up the future, of spurring them into action and fostering hope. But in order to secure hope, in order to give it substance, he must take part in the action and commit himself body and soul to the national struggle. You can talk about anything you like, but when it comes to talking about one thing in a man's life, it involves opening up new horizons, enlightening your country.
Right. So it's suicide or not. You know what I'm saying? To be or not to be.
Nobody can. Everybody got to get involved. And so I was like, damn it. I was over here like, yes, get him.
And I think again that's something else that again when we talk about our platform, a whole lot of different professors and academics come on and you know, dropping jewels. You know what I mean? I mean, the fact that we have, you know, folks like yourself and Joy James and Sundiata and folks like Dylan coming through and so many others. I think that there's it provides a balance, and it forces us all to sharpen our swords. You just can't come on here half stepping, or you get your head cut off by the chat. You know, and
no, look, Joy, look, you all last night. I mean, like Dylan for me is dangerous.
That's my dude. I like Dylan.
Yeah, me too. That's what I'm saying. He's dangerous because I'm very susceptible, as I call it, that halftime locker room speech.
Right.
I'd be the one ready to run through a brick wall after the coach done, you know, said what. And I feel like Dylan is that dude. Like he's in there like, what'd you do in the first half, Jared?
Yeah.
What was you doing out there running around on your little podcast, your little classrooms with your little book? What you do? And you like, and then Joy said, how are we going to ramp it up?
Right. And
so
she
like
comes
this
with the smoothness afterwards. Like
it's smooth, but it's the reverse. You know what it is? It's the antithesis to Judge Lucretia Clemens, who sat up there with that same smooth taste and sent Mumia back to the death chamber. She come in here with that smooth taste that sends you to the antithesis of that.
Right. So that's that kosher halal cut. You didn't even know you was leaking. The spirit just jumped out your body and whatnot.
You got home, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, because the state is so vicious and brutal. They just run up on you and start shanking you. They'll come through and just give you that nice halal cut. You know what I'm saying? You know, you're gonna bleed out and you ain't stressed about it. You know what I'm saying? You walk down the street and just drop. You know what I'm saying? So that's what that is. That's the type of cut it is. But no, so it's I think that a lot of academics that read Fanon, those are the chapters, these are the paragraphs that are skipped.
They're definitely not studied. So this is definitely a point that comes back in crystal clarity to me as we're doing this, and why I love it is that And same thing in that AAPRP presentation yesterday. It's yeah, I've read these things. I've read a lot of these things, but I haven't studied them.
Right.
I mean, I remember the names. I remember vague references here and there. I haven't read this book in I don't know, 20 years. I haven't, and I haven't studied it, or I haven't gone back and read page for page and studied it, or so there's a lot that gets left out, and including the part I want to bring up now, which is, I thought, a very, very difficult, and part of this chapter to struggle with, which is his whole condemnation of the idea of an African culture, which I've been operating under for a long time, most of my adult life. The Diopian and the even the Kwame Ture version of it, like, and Fanon is challenging that. And
what do you mean, Kwame Ture version, when you said that? I'm sorry.
So when I hear, well, Kwame Ture, the point that we're all Africans, and that that when he said, like, the job of the conscious is to make the unconscious conscious of their unconscious behavior. The idea that you're already an African, you behave as an African, you just don't know it yet.
Right.
And here are the things I can show you that you already do. Pouring something out for the homies, that's libation. The way you don't speak English properly, that's an African resistance, and you don't even know. I love all that stuff. But here's Fanon saying, nah, there is no African culture. There is national culture. And we can't get caught up in fantasies of their similarities. And so, for instance, on this page here, where he says, and this is, he's got bars in here too. He's battle rapping before battle rap. The African intellectuals who are still fighting in the name of Negro African culture and who continue to organize conferences dedicated to the unity of that culture should realize that they can do little more than compare coins to sarcophagi. God damn, Fanon. That's
disrespect.
That's just, there is no common destiny between the national cultures of Guinea and Senegal, but there is a common destiny between the nations of Guinea and Senegal, dominated by the same French colonialism. And this is where, in one hand, I'm like, he's throwing a blanket on these cultural nationalists and just wiping them out. But then no, wait a minute. Is he, or is he he's getting them to refocus what they're trying to do on something more specific to make it more potent? Or, and this is another question, I'll stop here, or is he mistakenly leaning too much into the colonial boundaries and territories created by the Europeans we're trying to get rid of? In other words, Guinea and Senegal are not African creations. Those are imposed French constructs. So when he's saying a national culture based on those constructs, is Fanon mistaken? Anyway, that's why, and this is why I said, if we're not careful, the reverse hashtags can take advantage of this stuff, but this is the point, and this is why I'm saying, if you study and leave it with, but this is where they lose it. If the focus is decolonization, anti-colonial struggle, then the reverse hashtags can't abuse this analysis. They can't take advantage of this analysis, as they've done with so many of the other analyses that they take advantage of. But that, it is my point. And there's more to this point that we can come back to in his chapter. But that's what I'm saying. If we're not careful, like with a lot of things can get,
we'll confuse the invisible borders and boundaries. And I think that is, it is. I mean, I think that's sort of like the whole subcultures and all of that, right? So we talk about, like, hip hop. I remember when I first met Server, and he was saying that, we all hip hop, and I was like, what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I said at best hip hop was a subculture. It's a culture that was that's man-made. Like, I guess all cultures are man-made when you really think about it, right? But I think that for Fanon, from what I'm reading, I think it can be both. We're talking about the borders and boundaries, but at the same time, you know, we do have our own set of cultures, right?
Mhm.
Unfortunately, like you said, yeah, things have been totally broken down. They've been, split up and separated and so on and so forth. And I think as Africans, one of the things that has been unique about us is that we've been able to transform despite the geographical boundaries, despite the climate, despite the conditions, we've been able to adapt. And I think that that's one of the things about Africans here in America, here in the United States. You know, we have Africans who have pretty much we've redefined our culture to a great extent to deal with the particular conditions and the quote unquote oppressor that we're dealing with head on right here. But unfortunately, it seems as if we've also split, separated, and alienated ourselves from the diaspora. I mean, from Pan-Africanism itself. Because so many people argue that I'm not this, I'm that, I'm not African, I'm American, I'm not African American, I'm not this, I'm not that. Regardless of what you call yourself, it's about your action. You know what I'm saying? What do you do? Regardless of, you can call yourself a Moor, you can call yourself a Muslim, you call yourself a Christian. That's great. Put on that outfit. But at the end of the day, either you're on the side of the oppressed or you're on the side of the colonizer. And if you're not on the side of oppressed, then by default, you aid the colonizer. So regardless, again, I don't necessarily agree with any and everything that anyone writes or talks about. I've never met a human being on the planet that I absolutely agree with 100%. So I struggle, and I'm going to go back to that and try to absorb it a little bit more,
Mhm.
and try to make sense of it. But I understand I think I understand where he was going. But I don't disagree with folks like Kwame Ture, because I understand that he's trying to bring us to our points of unity, bring us
And
to.
that's, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
yeah.
No. But
First
go
of all,
ahead.
we have to remember, because I see Diverse Tribe and I hear you and I appreciate you explaining yourself in the comments, but this is sort of the point I'm getting at. First of all, we have to remember the reverse hashtags are not studying Fanon, and that's why I'm encouraging all of us to revisit and study Fanon properly.
And for
Even
folks who
here
are
this
watching,
morning.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
go ahead.
folks who are watching that don't know what the reverse hashtags are, what I'm saying, you give them
Because I was
find a little bit.
because what we should be on is SODA, Solidarity of Dispersed Africans, and Fanon was a Pan-Africanist, undoubtedly.
Right.
The reverse hashtags are the American descendants of slavery, the ADOS, and so they've just got it exactly backwards, ideologically, politically, and in their hashtag. And shout out to Dr. Haight for pointing it out to me. It's to his credit. I get, but my point is that so one of my points is that is they're not we're not even here today, this is not, I think, a sufficient study of Fanon, but and we're only looking at excerpts of the chapter as we go through it. More than that, we're not ignoring, but because we're focused on this one book and today this one chapter, we're not talking about all of Fanon's work. So that would include so many more writings on colonialism, on Pan-Africanism, on the need for a unified struggle. So, and to the point, even in the part I just shared here, he's he's adding a component to this that that's why I was saying, if we don't pay attention, or if we only grab for the part we're looking for, we'll miss the point. He's saying, look, there are differences between the national cultures of Guinea and Senegal, but they are unified and do have a commonality in being dominated by the same French colonialism. This part right there is what collapses the abuse of his previous statement, or it defeats any abuse or attempt of abuse of his previous statement, meaning that, at least as I'm interpreting it, we don't all have to be exactly the same, and we shouldn't look to be exactly the same, and we shouldn't look to argue that we're all exactly the same, but we should look to argue that we all have to work together for a common struggle to remove ourselves or rid ourselves of a common colonial imposter. And that's the part that the reverse hashtags and others don't want to address, and that others who are not looking to be revolutionary and looking to avoid struggle don't want to address. Then they can just simply say, you're right, man. I'm not with them. I'm not like them. I don't have to work with them. And then what do they end up doing? They go right back to the colonial master and say, can we work with you? Can we get a better piece of what you have to offer? Because we're not siding with them. The rest of so this is why I keep saying Fanon, even in his imperfection, which is obvious, would have to be, is pointing us in a direction that I think, with a focus on anti-colonial struggle, defeats all of these Marxist, nationalists, Soda, Adolf. It defeats all of that.
Yeah. It's like religion. You know what I'm saying? It's like what Malcolm said about religion. He said, you go in the closet, you put your religion on the shelf, and you come out swinging. So indeed, part of political education, knowing yourself, but knowing your enemy as well, being clear about who your enemy is, So when you talk about quote unquote reverse hashtag, that don't mean that this is my enemy. It means that we have a different way of looking at a different view. And I'm clarifying that for folks who would like to draw the lines, right? But we need a moment of clarity. And that moment of clarity is, again, which side are you on? You know what I'm saying? Who you with? Either who you for and who you against. And if we're not clear about that, then we'll be against who we're supposed to be for and for who we're supposed to be against. And I think that that's one of the things. There is no assimilating into this burning building. We cannot assimilate into this insanity. And if we think we can, then that's great, but we will be cannon fodder for both sides, because the worst place to be stuck in is in the middle. Because now you're going to get hit from both sides because you're trying to play that middle ground. There's no middle ground when it comes to this. Either you're oppressed or not. Like Malcolm said, either you're free or you're a slave. You know what I'm saying? Or excuse me, that was Imam Jamil, H. Rap Brown. There's no in between. Either you're free or you're a slave. And I think that, to a great extent, we love to hear what Fanon's talking about. We love to hear about what George Jackson's talking about. We love to hear about what Malcolm's talking about. When it comes to the actual practice of it, then, we don't have no more energy. You read,
it's rough.
I'm tired after all these damn poems.
And speaking of rough, what he says on almost the very next page, that is Fanon, is it takes a lot to think about. He says here that there can be no such thing as rigorously identical cultures. To believe one can create a Black culture is to forget, oddly enough, that Negroes are in the process of disappearing, since those who created them are witnessing the demise of their economic and cultural supremacy. There will be no such thing as Black culture because no politician imagines he has the vocation to create a Black republic. The problem is knowing what role these men have in store for their people, the type of social relations they will establish, and their idea of future and of the future of humanity. That is what matters. All else is hot air and mystification. This was the paragraph more than any other that had me saying we gotta get. This is where I was like, Coco, put up the bet, Coco, because in Coco's recent discussions about sovereignty, nationalism, this just rung out to me like it that, in other words, if there is no effort of an RNA of or some other form of anti-colonial struggle where land is the base, then there can be no Black culture. And then sort of what he ends up talking about going on in the chapter is, as I'm humbly interpreting it, is that the versions of the cultures we get are distorted, ossified, as he uses in another writing elsewhere, versions of what they claim to be. And we end up with, as I'll show after we consider this for a moment, he comes back and says the version of jazz that's going to be popular is the old version that whites are happy to hear Black people playing, that reminds them of Black subservience.
That's the jazz we are playing right now.
There it is.
What I'm saying? I mean,
because there's been no anti-colonial struggle based on land. Exactly.
Yeah. Not even, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, that's it.
Jazz. We talking how the song go. You talking all that jazz.
All that jazz.
We talking about everything. So it's not just the arts and entertainment. It's we are dancing. We're all performing. Even the quote unquote folks in the movement, we're trying to perform to the tunes that were written by our oppressor. So we dancing to their music. We don't even, to a great extent, dare to resist. Resistance in this era is about, a hashtag, or at best, marching in the streets. And I'm not one that's against any form of resistance, but at the same time, where's the retribution? You know what I'm saying? Where's the and I'm not calling for I'm not trying to, suggest anyone do anything. I'm just asking you to ask yourself, like, what are we looking to do with all of this?
Like Les McCann said, and Michelle Ndegeocello came back later in her version. You talk, compared to what? You sounded, you think you sound good, but compared to what? You think you're a revolutionary, but compared to what? Compared to what? Oh man, that's just woo. This whole thing of we can't have a Black culture because we have no nation. There's no Black republic, as Fanon says.
Right, and that's why it is unfortunately necessary for us to identify, not even unfortunately, but that's why we look to the continent. But unfortunately, with many folks, that Wakanda mindset, that Black utopia mindset is what has us trapped, because it's not the reality of things. I get folks that all the time talking about they want to go back to Africa and fight, and help Africa, rebuild Africa, so on and so forth. Then you visit them and you have to literally step past secondary predators that are sitting on their porch that they're afraid to ask to move off of their own porch. You got cats smoking in front of their homes and doing all kinds of other things, disrespecting their daughters in their face. But you talking about going back to Africa to fight? I don't believe you. You won't even fight on your block. You know what I'm saying? The police come run you in your own home. You talking about your property owner. They tell you to get in the house. This is real life. This is what's going on in real neighborhoods right now. And a lot of these folks again talking about, we need to go back to Africa and fight them, and then help them. And man, are you serious? So if we defeat the colonizer okay. You talking about going up against the military, but you won't fight the security guard at the local Walgreens that disrespected you. Like, come on, man.
And to your point, there's goons everywhere. The goons that were standing on your porch over here that you don't want to walk past, they're over there too.
Yeah.
They outside the whatever you staying in over there too.
Waiting for you.
It's yeah.
They like, Shabir, anyway, yeah, okay, let's talk about this. So it is what it is, man.
I remember one time, man, in Zimbabwe, man, Todd had me out here running around trying to interview these radical journalists. And it was one moment we was somewhere and I had a little feeling like that. Like, I don't know if I want to go outside yet. Maybe we should just wait in here for a few more minutes and see what.
Yeah, I remember going to this one hood in Bridgeport. My mother has this friend. I'm not gonna say her name because she might be watching. But I
Yeah,
remember I was in this hood that I ain't really belong in.
yeah.
And for some reason I ended up going in this Chinese restaurant. This is like in the 90s and whatnot. So my mother's friend is in there, and it's a bunch of super gangster cats. And I'm just trying to creep in on the low. Yeah, here go my nephew right now.
Yeah.
Talk your shit down. Here, F you up. And I'm sitting, there's like 6 of them. I'm by myself. They know I'm out of order right now. I'm not even supposed to be over there. And she up there put me in it. I'm like, listen, auntie. Like, yeah, she cool. She just had, whatever. I'm trying to talk her way out of it. Yeah, tell him what you'll do to him, nephew. I'm like, listen, man, you don't get up out of here. But that's the reality of of where we are, man.
That's when family love goes wrong right there. That's
yeah.
like,
And that's what the continent is like. Yeah, we it sounds good in theory, but we are so again when it comes to the word decolonization, it's more than just a word, and it's such a, I mean, there's so many layers to this thing, man. There's so many layers on so many levels, and it's like there's no, it's not an easy road.
yeah.
But we'll get caught up in simple things like, like for instance, the chat. We'll be arguing about whether we black, whether we African, whether we this, whether we that. Listen, man, whatever you decide to call yourself, that's fine. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, we all, and I say all, are oppressed people. We can reject, we can fight back, we can talk that talk. You can hop on Guerrilla Intellectual University. We can talk about Black Power and all that. But until we control our own destiny, until we have simple things like food sovereignty, simple things like community control, you know what I'm saying? Until we have we have self-determination. All of this sounds good. We can, I mean, the debating and back and forth, that don't change our conditions at all.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's the sidetracking of the slave. We sitting there arguing about, what words are correct and what words aren't correct. We're speaking English. Our whole language is incorrect. You know what I mean? So let's figure out, let's get some points of unity. Where can we work together? Do we agree that the police are murdering us? I think we do. Do we agree that there are political prisoners in the United States? I think we do. Do we agree that there is ecocide? Do we agree that, there's a hole in the ozone and everything's being ripped apart? And no doubt, yeah, Nicaragua has 97% food sovereignty. Yes, but we don't. You know what I mean? So, how do we move from here? But anyway, I'm sorry, I don't want to go on a tangent.
No, I think it's to me, it's all important and connected. And I think that well, in fact, I mean, this what this revisit to Fanon does, I think it encourages sort of, again, a reminder or a reassessment of where we are, where well, in this context specifically, where's the artistry, where's the cultural production, where are we with all of that? And this is why I keep arguing that there's been, well, we all keep arguing, there's been so much effort on the part of the enemy to create so much disturbance in interfering in culture and interfering in media and journalistic narratives, et cetera, and so forth. By the way, this is why I was always attracted to the concept of emancipatory journalism, because the point is that the people involved in the struggle are the ones that should be producing the art and the culture and the media and the journalism and the analyses.
Absolutely.
That helps check some of these other. But this was just speaking of which, just this other part here that Fanon says about that I was referring to about jazz, that when he says that the new jazz styles are not, and I think you're right to remind, like when we hear jazz, we shouldn't just think of jazz, quote unquote, as a genre, but as maybe all Black music. The new jazz styles are not born out of economic competition. He's saying this in the context of a freedom struggle, of a liberation struggle, not
right.
where we should think of where we are today. Quite the opposite. They are one. These jazz styles, he says, they are one of the definite consequences of the inevitable, though gradual defeat of the Southern universe in the USA. And it is not unrealistic to think that in 50 years or so, the type of jazz lament hiccuped by a poor, miserable Negro will be defended by only those whites believing in a frozen image of a certain type of relationship and a certain form of negritude. To me, I would rephrase this, and I'm going to in my class, in my hip hop class this week. This is Fanon saying the music that much Black youth think that they love or have come to love and like and listen to and think is the authentic representation of their generational expression, blah, 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 is the result of this process here. And that is that and what we hear in a lot of the popular rap and music produced by the commercial media industry today is this lament, Black lament, hiccuped by a poor, miserable Negro that is defended by the whites who run the industry, who own all of the music, who own all of the distribution pathways. They defend it and impose it and reimpose it on us and our young people in particular, because it is the frozen image of a certain type of a relationship that they want to be reminded of, in a certain form of Black expression or negritude that whites are comfortable with. And this is, for me, what Fanon has always been pointing us to in terms of understanding our current media environment, that what you get, it may look Black, sound Black, may be well done, but it's not for you. It's to make the white audiences and the white owners of it all feel better about their colonial process and the relationship that they benefit from. Anyway, and I think he was right.
Yeah, this reminds me of gentrification, right? So I'm thinking back to a couple weeks ago, there was a video that went viral about folks bum rushing this Walmart in Chicago, right? So there's supposed to have been like 4 Walmarts closing, and these particular Walmarts were they were pretty much the grocery stores for the quote unquote neighborhoods. These neighborhoods in the food desert, of course, we talk about food sovereignty and everything. And there was a sister who went through the Walmart videotaping on her phone. I don't know if the chat saw it or you saw it. She went through the Walmart and she's like, look at what we're doing to ourselves, because folks, they were upset that the Walmart was closing and they bum rushed the Walmart and a lot of the shelves was bare and they just ripped things apart. So the sister walks through and we're doing this to ourselves, and I'm paraphrasing. We talk about George Floyd and this and that. I can't even get no milk to feed my baby, so on and so forth, blase blah, right? And folks were sending me the video like, yo, this is a shame what they're doing themselves or whatever, so on and so forth. And my response is, this was a result of capitalism, because the sister was saying, we're tearing up our own stuff. Walmart is not our own, but when you lack an understanding of what's what, you'll blame the victim opposed to the suspect. You know what I'm saying? The actual criminal themselves. So these people were right to respond to Walmart like, look, you came and sucked up all this money. Now you moving out, you moving on, and you leaving us hanging, because they had been protesting and all of that about them closing. But the Walmart said they weren't making enough money in those neighborhoods. So unfortunately, instead of us saying, when we talk about food desert, so on and so forth, we're not looking at it from the the lack of community control, the lack of food sovereignty, so on and so forth, we're looking at it like we don't have any grocery stores in the neighborhood. And just setting up a black supermarket or a black store in the community is not going to solve the problem. Because if they can't maintain, then it becomes an issue. So that takes me back to this chapter here, or this particular paragraph you're speaking on, because we are used to, quote unquote, blaming ourselves for our demise, opposed to looking at the bigger picture. So, what the way Fanon taps in on this here is, I mean, it can be applied in all different directions. And it's not, like you said, it's not made for us. This is all about their enjoyment. It's about their advancement. So even in part of my point in that story, I was just telling another sister hops on, and she was on the news. She was like, how come we don't have the Starbucks and we don't have the such and such and blah, 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 like they have in their neighborhood, so on and so forth. In my mind, I'm like, don't worry. They'll be coming to the neighborhood. That's
They're on
part
their
of the
way.
reason. Yeah, that's why Walmart is closing, to usher in some more of their boutiques and their higher priced businesses. But it will never be for you. This is designed for your colonizer. This is for their enjoyment. This is that jazz that you're talking about. This is the thing that makes them comfortable. It's not for your comfort. It's not.
She's also asking, why can't we get exploited like Starbucks exploits workers in that neighborhood? Like, come exploit us too,
Like, we want to be exploited. We want those $7 lattes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is what it's all about, man. And have no thought about us, again, controlling our own situation. I mean, it is a sad thing when we don't even, when we have to look at, and I thought about Fanon, when we have to look at, I think it was last chapter we was talking about, looking to our enemies to feed us. So what is liberation and sovereignty if we don't have control over what it is we put into our bodies? We have to look back to our former colonizer, quote unquote, for sustenance. I mean, that's some weird things. I mean, it's like, that reminds me of what we talked about last night with the brother, Sam Randolph, when he was saying that he wasn't eating their food because he knew they would spit in it, they were spraying disinfectant on it, so on and so forth. They're already trying to kill him. They literally broke his back and still tortured him. You know what I mean? So why would you want to eat their food? They already told you they don't have your best interest at heart. So ain't no telling what they're doing with your food. So, yeah, this again, it's layers to this thing, man.
It's yeah. And first of all, on the day of the International Worker, it should just be a big middle finger to Walmart, just in general.
All day, every day.
In the Walton family, all of them, just horrible.
Yes. Sam's Club, same program.
all of that. Yeah. But this is why, again, what Fanon writes in this chapter is so important, and it's the perfect reminder, because as he says here, the nation is is not only a precondition for culture. So he's saying nation is a precondition for culture, and that's, I think, a very important point that he makes a couple times in this chapter, that to discuss culture outside of the discussion of national liberation doesn't make sense. But he says it's an I'm not even sure I'm saying this word right. Ebullition. It's perpetual renewal and maturation. That is, it's constantly reproducing. Like, you have to have national territory, national liberation. That has to be your focus, because it is what will reproduce and constantly develop the culture that you need. First of all, it is the struggle for nationhood that unlocks culture and opens the doors of creation. Later on, it is the nation that will provide culture with the conditions and framework for expression. So, like, this is always, again, why I think a focus on colonization or decolonization or internal colonialism, whatever we want to call, is essential, because it just again, what is the word? Synthesizes all of these different concerns, I think, over material, culture, Marx, nationalism, whatever, all of it is there. And yeah. So now
Yeah.
I keep getting stuck on how does that work, and this is where I keep coming back. I know I keep saying her name, but I keep coming back to Coco in her conversations because I keep reading this is like, well, where for those of us here, what does that mean? And even on the continent, and this is where I kind of struggle with what even Fanon was, where he was when he was writing at least this. And I think, we got to come back and read towards a pan-African revolution, towards an African revolution, all these other writings, or collections of writings. But what does he mean? Is it correct to struggle or to accept that a national culture exists in a Ghana, in a Nigeria, in a Senegal, any more than it would exist in Black America, if all of these creations are themselves European creations? None of them are authentically African. And then even to investigate a little more, I don't think if there was one flaw, I think in this chapter, is that I don't think he does enough in this chapter to explain this difference he creates between Arabs and Africans in terms of the retention of culture and national identity. I'm not entirely sure I understand or agree with that distinction, but anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, nationhood is important. Being a nation within the nation. You know what I'm saying? This is what it's about. That's one of the things I love about the Republic of New Africa when they talk about the 5 nation states, because you have to have independence, and land is the basis of power, man. We can't have no power when we living amongst the thieves, and they're controlling, patrolling, and pretty much dictating our reality. You have to have some type of sovereignty. You have to have an existence within this colony, because the colony is here.
Yeah.
But we have to figure out, as Kwame Ture talking about, how do we survive America? You know what I mean? So unfortunately, we are under the illusion that the proximity to power makes us appear powerful. But the reality is, all we become is an irritant to these folks. There's so much land out here that can be purchased and municipalities built, so on and so forth, without making a whole bunch of noise. Again, our people want everyone to know that this is where the headquarters of Blase Blah is, and you got to throw your flag up and all that. That's great for cultural identity, and for it's great for symbolism. But at the end of the day, how much can you build when you're giving folks the roadmap to your existence? You know what I mean? There are, being here in the South, I'm grateful because I travel and we organize in different pockets that are virtually unknown to the rest of the country. Now, the white folks in these areas, they know what time it is. The police and all that, they know where it's at because it's right there. But there are pockets of resistance, and there's work that's being done without a Facebook page, without a YouTube channel, and all that type stuff. And to me, that's the way to go. You know what I mean? So yeah, we have to have some type of national culture. We have to have our own nations within the nation, or we'll continue to play this tug of war with a fire burning on both ends, man.
Nah, I totally disagree, man. If it's not on Facebook, it ain't real.
Oh, okay.
You just you need a Facebook page and an Instagram. Nah. ZZ
Amen.
Lion Dad, thank you for your contribution. The poetry make the connection on the soldier going to war just to come home to get murdered by police. The description of the soldier sitting in the background as leaders of the community and recruiting the kid. H school day. Is that homeschool? What does that mean? What did I miss? I don't know. But I appreciate you, ZZ Lion Dad. Just real quick, just as a concluding where he concludes, for me at least, where he concludes the chapter, I would want to conclude myself at least for this morning. When he's talking about the responsibility the African towards his national culture is also the responsibility toward Negro African culture. This joint responsibility does not rest upon a metaphysical principle, but mindfulness of a simple rule which stipulates that any independent nation in an Africa where colonialism still lingers is a nation surrounded, vulnerable, and in permanent danger. So this is why, again, if we study and read him properly and don't look to abuse his analysis, the whether it's reverse hashtags or anyone else, there's a clarity here about what he's about his pan-africanism and his recognition that there may be differences in pockets and differences between African groups and African communities and nations, but that they need to work in league with one another, or none of them will be free. So this is where I felt the very much the Nkrumah or the Che vibes. The revolution has to go beyond the initial boundary that has been imposed on us. Otherwise, there's high school day. Thank you. Otherwise there's no hope. Otherwise, all we have is a Wakanda that can hide itself and separate itself from the rest of an unfree African world.
I think
And thank you, Franny.
That next line that was right under what you.
Oh yeah, sure. Hold on. Yep.
He said, if man is judged by his acts, then I would say that the most urgent thing today for the African intellectual is the building of his nation. That is
right on.
I mean, what do we? I think that we have to kind of try to figure out what our collective goals are. We have goals as individuals, and then we should have some type of collective goals. But I think that more importantly, we have to define who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And who is we? You know what I'm saying? Because I think that in our minds, we have this fantasy of all Black folks coming together, of all Africans, from across the planet coming together. But there will always be until we take control of our destiny, and we take this, we take our these attacks on us collectively personal, then we will constantly be disillusioned, because there'll always be the Kamala Harrises, there'll always be the Judge Lucretias, and this is the new age of imperialism. This is, this is the it's not even neocolonialism. It is colonialism at its finest, because you have these natural looking Negroes who you assume they're going to do the right thing, because in our minds we have this connection. It's just like when we walk into a building and we see someone else Black and we make eye contact, as we talked about in the past. We're like, all right, it's like Biggie's song. It's like, holla if you hear me, holla if you need me, love, I'm in the house. You know what I'm saying? You just glance over and you thinking that it's all good. Okay, I done spotted 3 brothers in here, so I know if it go down, we got each other's back. And then something happens and you realize they're like, they were brothers by complexion only.
No, it's like, what is the African proverb? The trees saw the axe handle and thought they saw a comrade. Right. Whatever. Right. Yes. It's like, wait a minute, you forgot about the other part.
Yeah. That's the reality, man.
You're just like, looking at the handle. You're like, hold on, son. You're like, wait a minute.
Man, my grandmother used to say she said, man, the rabbit can't even trust his own brother because he might have a dog in his pocket. You understand what I'm
Wow.
saying? So,
Yeah.
that's where we at, man. It's like, we have to define, and that's the importance of nationhood. Understanding, making the decision, like, who am I? What is my goals? Am I trying to change this, this burning building into a one-story condo? You know what I'm saying? What are we trying to do here? Do I want to, when I see the fire burning, do I get mushrooms and do I get a
Mhm.
bucket to try to put it out? What are we doing here?
Not well, like your
I
man
meant marshmallows,
Belafonte
yeah.
used to say, in that raspy voice, he would say, "No, King said we become firefighters.
Right.
We got to become firefighters."
I don't know about all that, but
Well,
it's
I just wanted to bring it back. Some of us might want to say we had just throw some more oil on that joint.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'd be the
Throw
guy.
another match.
I didn't even know it was gas in this hose. Like, what you doing? Oh, I thought this was water. You got it's hooked up to Exxon. But anyway, that's just me. I'm
But
just,
we
a little
respect the
different.
point he was trying to make. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Yeah, he just, all
yeah.
respect, dude.
It's broke clock right twice a day, man. You know what I'm saying? It's all right. Just we take the best parts.
Yeah.
Nowadays I'm trying to find, that commercial for me back in the day. You can learn a lot from a dummy. That means something to me, man. It's like, every now and then, man, even a fool will say something intelligent. You know what I'm saying? So, it's about, interpretation. How are you able to take what it is you have and use it for the right tool? Just because you got a hammer, it might not be what you need, or you can turn that hammer into something else.
Hmm.
I was talking to it's funny, this brother a few days ago. He's like, man, you know, I heard you talking about, if brothers can't get guns to get a tool belt and all this. Man, that's crazy, man. You know what I'm saying? You think a knife, you can go up on a knife? I said, man, people get shanked in prison every day with pork chop bones, newspapers, you know what I'm saying? Big razors, whatever. So all of that stuff, I mean, you can't possibly understand guerrilla warfare if you think that you need certain types of you need backpacks and truckloads of things to get you through.
It
You
depends
can't
what the
possibly
mission and
understand.
the target is. That's all. So, and that's your point. We just have to be clear what we're doing out here. Uh if I'm going to the ear doctor show, I'm gonna bring some turntables and some headphones. You know what I'm saying?
You
That's
better.
that's the right tool for the occasion. It's whatever. You know what I mean? If I'm going to the mosque, you bring the Quran. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know
Look,
what I mean? You don't
you gotta,
need the whole Islamic world to go to the mosque. You just need the
you,
Quran and your
nah,
son.
do what you need to do. You know what I'm saying? Come on through. You know what I'm saying? To get what you need to get. You know.
Yeah,
But
you just
we're strange kind of people. I think that we're accustomed to setting up our own holes and barricades, and and to me, I think it's almost like, with the young children, they have their little safety bears, and they have, what I'm saying, there's different, their comfort bears and comfort blankets. And I think our comfort blankets is our fear. We're comfortable being afraid. It's a weird, it sounds crazy, but we are absolutely comfortable being afraid. We're comfortable uh, not resisting, because we feel that if we resist, then you stand more of a chance of getting, obliterated. When in fact, you don't have to resist to be lynched. You know, um, we look at Carolyn Bryant, making her transition a few days ago, and on another interview, I said something to the extent of, she's finally taken her journey to hell, and may, the heat be turned up, so on and so forth. And the host of the show, he was like, well, brother, that's kind of harsh.
I
And this
know.
is this an African that said this to me. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, if that's harsh, man, you should see Emmett Till. You know what I'm saying? I mean, as Joy pointed out yesterday, she lived like 60 something years longer than Emmett Till did. You know, so
Look,
we're
man,
in a strange place.
I was at a presentation the other day, and I told my standard joke when Reagan's name gets brought up. It's not a joke. I just remind everybody that he died during my wedding, and we raised a glass. And whenever I do that, like as was the case in this room, it's in some ways it's like a political test. And you could feel all the tension in the room. It was an all black space, and you could feel the tension in the room. And it took my man to crack a joke a little bit to like release. Like you could feel people being like, "Hold on," I feel like. And my thing is, well, if you feel like I went too far, just look at what Reagan did to people.
Right.
Just look at his. Just take 5 minutes and look at what Reagan did to people, and then come back and tell me you feel a kind of way about me toasting his passing. Like I'm like. Anyway, I'm with you on it. Like my former comrade and I missed this part of the trip. So I'm mad. She went and urinated on Cecil Rhodes' grave. And then people were talking about she felt the kind of way about. I was like, you are my hero for that. You know what I'm saying? Don't ever.
We call that water in the plants.
You know what I'm saying? It would be if I had done that, it would literally be on my bio. And I pissed on Cecil Rhodes' grave. It'd be like, Jared did this. He's a professor, and he pissed on Cecil Rhodes' grave. And somebody got a problem with it.
Listen, man, we call that water in the plants, my man. So that's he's just there. I had to use it, and that's the deal. But we are.
What did Al Sharpton? I heard Al Sharpton even say one time. He said the hardest thing for him to do is to eulogize a bad man. He said you got to go up there and fake. It's like the funniest thing Al Sharpton ever said. But I'm like, that's their fault, and that's where I agreed with Al. Like that's their fault. I
probably wouldn't publicly agree with Al on anything, but I get your point.
I'll take that. I'll take you right. You're right on that. Fair enough. You're right. You're right. Man. Fair enough. Apologies. I stand corrected. But the point still is, like, I get it. Like they lived that. Cecil Rhodes did that. So if I'm pissing on your grave, and if I raise a glass at Reagan's passing, that's on him. He did all that. He did all that's you address yourself to him. I didn't do nothing. I didn't do all that. Anyway,
I'm always confused at how much compassion we have for our enemy.
Oof.
But when it comes to us, we don't have any compassion. You know what I'm saying? It's just like that's a shame. One thing, the highlight of last night in that talk we had for me was when Dylan just straight up, and for folks who have children right now, you can cover their ears real quick. But when he said, we was talking about the brother Sam Randolph. He said, Dylan just looked at him. He said, man, they fucked him up, and he's still fighting. I mean, just straight like that, and that's the only way to describe it. Yes, they fucked him up. You understand what I'm saying?
Really
and
it's like crazy. It's crazy.
But we don't have the same amount of mercy for our own that we have for our enemies. You know what I'm saying? You have, even with this propaganda, you watch these movies and whatnot, and folks get caught up in, you start rooting for the police.
Yeah.
Like, that's the FBI right there, right? You know what I'm saying? That's the NYPD right there.
I used to do it myself when I would watch. I used to watch, and I would make fun of myself watching Law and Order. When they used to, the old version where they would do the first half is the cops, the second half is the. I used to be like, "Ooh, they got you now, Jack. Gonna fry you up in the court on the next half. They got him." And I'd be like, "Yeah, that's the whole
crazy indoctrination,
the whole point."
But like what Daruba was talking about the other day, and like we've been talking about for years, like someone like Ice-T made a living off of being a pimp and the police. You know what I'm saying? You went from cop killer and 6 in the morning, police at my door. He was coming a little bit early on. You know what I mean? But then, they flipped him.
And then Diallo still recite the whole verse and claim Ice-T. Yeah.
I like Diallo, but Diallo, you be bugging, man.
We all love Diallo, but he pushed all the buttons and got us all wondering. We all take a moment. We got a Diallo moment, like scratching, like hold up. Anyway, I was like, it's all good, man.
Diallo be talking all this shit. They be talking you nonviolent. Well, we gonna have to be violent if we in the room. We talking that shit like that. But
that's why Skip Coon told him. He says, "Brother." Skip at me, brother. You get a little.
Shout out to
Anyway,
him, man. Skip Coon, though, man.
no
Hey,
question. No
folks should check
question.
out Skip Coon's music too, man. I don't know
Oh
if y'all
no.
got into Skip. You know what I'm
Oh
saying? He got some gangster
oh.
shit.
Please, he's on. First of all, to his, I'm sure, highest esteemed honor, he's on the I Mix What I Like book mixtape. He was on the official mix. Skip,
Well,
man,
hold it before you go there. He's
what's up?
on the FTP movement, Food, Clothing,
See?
Shelter joint,
See?
and the Black is Beautiful, Black is Powerful
Oh,
FTP
damn.
joint. So since we talking about some, but anyway, go
Well, he
ahead.
was in Academics and Cars, dude. I'm just playing. No, Skip is fired. Like as I said, the only error I've ever seen him make is that he held up Peniel Joseph's Stokely book in one of his videos. That was the only mistake. That's the only thing he's ever done. That's it that I'm aware of that he's done wrong. And we could, we'll work with the brother on that. I forgive him.
Okay. All right. We'll
Anyway,
on that. Yeah.
Kalanji, man. So next week, we back with Colonial War and Mental Disorders, chapter 5.
Is that what it is? How many chapters in this joint right here?
5 is the official last chapter, and then there is there's a conclusion and something. I mean, we can maybe work it all in next week if we want. But we can
the 8th, right?
Yeah. Am I saying?
So the plan for folks who are checking us out is to jump on George after Malcolm X Day.
Right
after
on.
May 19th.
Perfect.
So
the 22nd, is that the 22nd, Monday the 22nd?
I think. Yeah.
Nice. Blood in my eye. I cannot wait. I'm so amped. I'm so amped for that.
Yeah, that's gonna be a whole nother level. So make sure you know that Blood in My Eye is gonna be the next book. So I think that what we should do is next week we do chapter 5.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe we it took us a while to get through it because we had some
we took the 1 week off for Mumia's birthday.
Yes. So if you all missed last week, and I'm surprised that those numbers wasn't through the roof. Y'all bugging.
Every once in a while, I'm with you on that. Every once in a while, I'm like, what are y'all doing?
If you missed the Mumia joint last week, we had Mumia's closest comrades, some of his closest comrades, and supporters on GIU, including Mumia himself. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how many shows, how many different podcasts and platforms have had Mumia on as many times as us. Besides Prison Radio,
he damn near a host. You know what I mean? Besides Prison Radio, he damn near a BPM host at this point.
We need to
send him a check. I was gonna say get him a check and a show. But straight up, like seriously, I'm with you on that. Sometimes I'm a little confused by our wonderful audience. I'm not entirely clear what gets everybody to one video versus another, and I'm not sure why that one hasn't broken some of the records. So please, everybody, go back and if you haven't watched it, watch it and share it. The Mumia birthday special we did last week. Let's I'll leave it there. Go find that one and share that and tell somebody to watch that.
And selfishly, if you missed last night's joint,
watch that too.
On Rochelle McGee, Sam Randolph, and Mumia, make sure you tap into that. That was last night's RSTV with Dylan Rodriguez and Joy James. We also have an article coming out in Inquest tomorrow, which is this paper out of Harvard University, which every time I say Harvard, for some reason my throat starts to
what did my godfather said? I think I forgot where it comes from, but that line that Harvard ruined more good Negroes than bad whiskey.
Man,
that's right.
I could agree with that, but I gotta say shout out to them because they took this article that Joy and I did. We did it by the beginning of the month, and it literally, after negotiation and roughhousing and threats and all kinds of things about the edits, we got it to a safe space so to be out tomorrow. But it's a task. This work that you see us doing, please believe it's not as easy as we might make it seem. And we appreciate those of you who support our efforts. And because some people just come on. I see some people hop on the chat just to criticize.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Certain shows or whatever, they got all bad things to say. Like, and in my mind, I'm like, look, man, this ain't the only, platform you can go to. It's not the only show. If you don't like what's going on, man, there's a nice highway nearby you. Go play on it. You know what I'm saying? That's just my
I'm happy
particular.
we give them something to do. That's all.
Yeah,
I'm happy to give
it's
them
all
something.
good. It's all good. But anyway, definitely appreciate you all. We have a lot coming on today. What's happening at I
So
think you
come
got
back at
something on
11. Ashanti Alston going to talk
No
about
doubt.
being an anarcho-pantherista, as I think is that his in black anarchism. We're going to talk with him about that, and maybe we'll see what else he wants to get into.
No doubt.
And then just make sure you got the bell rung so that you don't miss whenever things are happening, that you get that notification, because BPM is prolific in its production. So
7:00 as well. I believe it's 7:00.
What's happening tonight?
Daughters of
right on.
Daughters
of the Whirlwind. That's right.
I have Mama Tamu on tonight. And I'm gonna tell y'all, man, if you've been missing Daughters of the Whirlwind, some of y'all are slipping. You better
I missed the last one,
up.
but the first one, you're right. I got to get caught up on the last one, but they came out the gate swinging, and yeah, right on, absolutely.
Yeah.
So get again. I just rang my bell again on that one to make sure. Although I get all the notifications anyway, but I just specialize on that. Make sure everybody ring the bell on the channel so you don't get you don't miss anything.
And share what it is we're doing. We appreciate that. I mean, folks be like, oh, I didn't see it. Well, you didn't share it either, but that's a whole nother program, man. But continue to support our efforts. We appreciate you, joining us, riding with us. I'm not going front. It was hard as hell to get up this morning to to talk about.
We had a whole household collapse over here. It was a whole household collapse. So this was. But I feel good now. I'm excited. This was a great way to start the day. Mondays are the worst, of course, except for us. So I appreciate us.
No doubt. I appreciate us too. Be safe. Check those works out. We'll see y'all next time. Guerrilla Intellectual University, Black Power Media. We out.